this Torah thing just a fad that some of us are going through? And will we eventually realize it's not for us? Let's just go back where we came from and start all over again. Or do we just simply have more that we need to learn? Hi, this is Barry Phillips with 10-Minute Torah, day number 1 of the Torah portion, Tzaria, 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 which means to conceive seed, if you will. Let's go to Leviticus, chapter number 12, and begin reading with verse number 1. Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel, saying, when a woman has conceived and has given birth to a male child, then she shall be unclean 7 days, as in the days of her monthly separation she is unclean. And on the 8th day the flesh of his foreskin is circumcised. And she remains in the blood of her cleansing 33 days, that is, for a total of 40 days. She does not touch whatever is set apart, and she does not come into the set apart place until the days of her cleansing are completed. But if she gives birth to a female child, then she shall be unclean for 2 weeks, as in her monthly separation, and she remains in the blood of her cleansing for 66 days, that is, 80 days, twice as long. And when the days of her cleansing are completed for a son or for a daughter, she brings to the priest a lamb a year old as an ascending offering, and a young pigeon or a turtle dove as a sin offering to the door of the tent of appointment." Now, we're going to pause there, and we'll pick up there tomorrow. When we read these words, it's very easy for us just to say, it really doesn't apply to us. We have modern science, modern medicine, modern understanding of anatomy. So therefore, all of this stuff about separation and blood flow and all the necessities of being isolated, it's not really that important. Not to us, not today. The reality is either the Torah applies or it doesn't. That is, it applies as a whole or it doesn't. Now, there are some things that pertain to, say, for example, the Levitical priesthood. If you're not a Levitical priest, then there are certain tenets of the Torah that will not apply to you simply because it's not speaking to you specifically. That does not mean, however, that we shouldn't study it, because in the study of it, there's revelation. In particular, there's revelation about Messiah, and that's necessary. So even if it doesn't apply to us, we study it. I'm a man. I'm not going to be giving birth. Matter of fact, my wife nor I are expecting any more children at this stage of life. So we can just kind of glide over these words here, and they really have nothing to say to us, right? While it may not apply to us exactly in our course of life at this point, it does have some things to teach us. Therefore, we still study it. So what we're talking about here has been broadly characterized as clean and unclean, a distinguishing between the Hebrew words tahor, Tahor, if you're taking notes, tahor referencing that which is clean, and tamei, Tamei, that which is referencing as unclean. And it's very easy for us just to say, well, that's all that it's talking about. However, to the Western mind, when something is considered unclean, we often tend to think, well, let's just give it a bath and a good washing, and therefore it will be clean then, right? Well, for example, and you can just go back one chapter in your reading, the Leviticus or Vayikra chapter 11, and read about this, that a swine or a pig is unclean to us. It is tamei. And if you would, in your mind, imagine a pig, they stink, they smell badly, and oftentimes they're covered in mud. They love to lay and wallow in the mud. A pig pen has a horrific odor. I remember my grandfather raising pigs as a child. I remember that odor. So we bathe the pig. We wash it down. We scrub it down with soap and water. We put a bow around its neck. We put lipstick on it. We dress it up in whatever fancies that we can imagine, and it's clean, right? No, it by nature is always going to be unclean. You cannot change the nature of that which is unclean in its nature and make it clean, except for mankind in the redemptive work of Yeshua. That's the exception. So it's not just the idea of clean and unclean. A better understanding might be that which is useful to Yah for his righteous purposes and that which is not. Another way of looking at that might be that which is able to be elevated and that which is not able to be elevated. If you take a bull or a lamb or a goat, it's just an ordinary animal. It's clean. You're permitted to eat it, but you can lay it on the altar and it can be elevated to a higher purpose. Then we can also understand then that a pig can never be put on an altar. It can never be elevated. There is no ascending purpose for it. Therefore, we need to understand that Yah has certain boundaries and parameters that he still enforces to this day. It's up to you and I, even if our culture would permit us, to make a decision to walk according to Yah's precepts and his guidelines, whether they are agreeable to those that are around us or not. It has been noted that there are three main ideas of a perspective, a worldview, and life expectancy. There is hedonism, which basically says if it feels good, do it. Whatever you would is the whole of the law. It's been said. If you're not hurting anybody else, go for it. No boundaries. Then on the other extreme is asceticism, which says that we need to limit the flesh in order to accentuate the spiritual. Buddhism, Hinduism, Baha'i, Islam, Catholicism in some applications all have that idea of life. And some tenets of Christianity, there is this limit yourself, and because you're born again and you're righteous and you must be holy, therefore you can enjoy life. There is a different way. It's called the Torah. And you can call it Judaism, you can call it Hebraic roots, you can put a tag on it that makes you comfortable, but it's following the Torah that Yah gave through Moshe. It is the heart, the character, the personality of Yeshua. And so we embrace this. And then the understanding of the Torah is there are things that are currently in the dark that may be elevated and brought into the light. And it is our goal and desire to do that. There are some things in the dark, they're dark by their nature, and they will always be dark. We abstain from those. There are certain things that we understand that they're filled with light. We set them apart. We keep them set apart, lest they be tainted by darkness. We understand then that there are some things that can be elevated, some things that cannot be. Those that are elevated, we try to keep them from being brought low. What this requires of us is discernment. Discernment comes to us by reading and studying the Word, prayer, seeking the Father's face, praying these things out before Him, asking questions and getting answers, and then being led and taught by the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit. It inscribes these things upon our hearts. It's not that difficult a process. None of these commands are too hard for us. And so we embrace them, even if it's about rituals and impurities. And we'll study those tomorrow. Until then, shalom.